Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Inclusion and Wellbeing Forum with your hosts, myself, Catherine O'Farrell from Incluzun.com, and the wonderful Susie Hache, Lead Counsellor for GEMS. Our session today will be a panel discussion with 4 wonderful panelists who have agreed to join us, and we will move to our introductions in just a moment. As usual, we would ask that all mics be muted on entry so that our speakers can be heard. If you have a question, please put it in the chat, and myself and Susie will monitor the chat and ask either throughout the session or at the end of the session. Our sessions are all recorded and available on our website, and you can check the link in our chat to find all of those, and we post them in our monthly newsletter. We keep the focus on students and schools. So if you have a question about a particular case or a school, please don't mention names, but feel free to ask the question. Industry experts are welcome, but we are not promoting any goods or services, so please don't speak about goods or services that you're offering. And please remember that while we have a panel of experts, we are all in the same boat in education, working towards improving student outcomes. So we are all working toward the same goal. And while we give advice as to what works best in different settings, we would always advise that if you have a query about your own setting, you approach your principal or your group lead first before taking any action, because every school and every group is slightly different. Okay, we're going to move on. I've put all of our speakers' links in our chat, so you can connect with them, follow them online. And I'm going to begin with some introductions. So we have the wonderful Jeff Evans from Learning Key and from Global International School in Al-Ain, Mr. Ian McNiff from Athena Education, Miss Neelam Bhatti from the School of Creative Science, and Miss Tiffany Scott from Bloom Education. So beginning with Ian, would you like to give us a brief introduction of who you are and what your experience is?
Well, it's a big question. Who am I? That takes a long time to answer if you want to answer it philosophically. But I'm Ian McNiff. I'm basically, although the looks and the makeup might not cover it up, I've been in education for 40 years, nearly. I know you don't think I look older than 40, but I have been that long in the business. Been a principal, local authority director, national director of policy for the UK government, as well as been a principal for 13 years, and in Saudi Arabia, director of the Mohiba project, which was for gifted and talented students working in the King's Foundation. Here, principal inspector with the KHDA and director of quality assurance there, and now with Athena as the director of their schools.
Super, thank you. And Jeff.
Hi, good afternoon, colleagues. Thank you for the invitation, Catherine. Again, my name is Jeff Evans. I'm currently working as principal of Global English School in Al-Ain, down in the Oasis City. Previously, having worked with Abu Dhabi Education Council, program manager for school development for 5 years, which was working with about 45, 50 schools across the Emirate of Abu Dhabi. And prior to that, school leadership experience in Taiwan, Europe, and to the UAE, so quite well, quite familiar, involved with the school inspection framework, helping schools to understand and respond to those challenges and to improve, of course. So, always very keen to share ideas and best practice. So it's good to join the group today. Thank you for the invitation.
Super. Thank you. Tiffany.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Catherine, for inviting me, having me. My name is Tiffany Scott. I am 25 years into education. My first 19 years were in the States. I worked with various disabilities, various settings, and I've been here in the UAE for about 6 years now. I started in Abu Dhabi, at a private school there. And now I'm currently the head of inclusion over 6 schools here in LA with Bloom Charter School.
Thank you. And last but certainly not least, Ms. Neelam.
Hi, good evening. I'm Neelam Bhatti. I'm a head of primary at a school in Sharjah, Creative Science School. I've been in the UAE for 4 years, originally from the UK, have background experiences of psychology, inclusion, safeguarding, and most recently well-being as well. So thank you for having me here.
You're very, very welcome. Okay, let's begin with our first series of questions. So today's session is focusing on inspection readiness for schools across the Emirates, with a focus firmly on inclusion and well-being. And my first question is directed, enabled, my apologies, we're enabling live transcripts. My first question is directed at Mr. Ian. As a lead inspector for many years, what would you say is the biggest challenge faced by a school around inclusion during the inspection period?
Quite simply, focusing on what's important, and very often people will give you information that's not relevant, and what you want is information on how well the children are doing in the classroom mainly, and that is very often the hardest piece of information for people to provide, for many reasons. There's no fault or blame attached, but it is the focus on what goes on in the classroom. The children, except there are exceptions, but the majority of children, whether they're on wave 3, wave 2 or wave 1, spend most of their time in the classroom. So the biggest challenge is not focusing. The interventions are important, please. I don't want to dismiss that. But the inclusion leads should be very comfortable that the teachers know the strategies that they've provided and are implementing those strategies, and know whether those strategies that have been provided are working or not. And that's having that information at your fingertips is a challenge. But if you can set up the systems and processes, you know, from the beginning of the year, so you're getting the information and you're able to monitor the progress that the students are making. I think the challenge, I think sometimes with teachers, and I say this as a former student of determination. I mean, I'm a profoundly deaf person, severely deaf, and I think, if I may, this isn't meant in any arrogant way, I'm not the brightest person, but I think there's a great tendency to underestimate people, children with particular needs, whether it be dyslexia or autism. It doesn't matter what the needs, cerebral palsy, it doesn't matter. I think we tend to, teachers in particular, tend to underestimate and therefore differentiate down, not differentiate up. So, you know, I would encourage to find this, you know, to support teachers, to find the strategies which stretch and challenge students of determination, regardless of their barrier to learning, find a way that they can achieve, just as people have found a way, sadly for you, for me to communicate. You know, it was the efforts of other people that enabled me to communicate clearly. So we've got to do the same for each and every child, but that means a lot of work for the inclusion leads in helping teachers. So the training of, it's not for inspection week, it's all the year round, but if the teachers know the needs of the child and the learning barriers and know the ways to challenge them, then your work is done, really. I wouldn't worry too much about the paperwork then, if you're comfortable with that going on. But it is the child in the classroom that presents the biggest challenge, not whether the children are getting intervention support. That's important to know. That's usually readily available. But it's when you walk into a classroom and the teacher doesn't, have you got an IEP? No. Do you know what the strategies are? No. Do you know what the needs of a child with dyslexia is? No. then that's a challenge, isn't it? So it comes down to one thing: knowing the children and how you can get the best out of them. I would summarize it like that.
Okay, thank you. That's very. I think that's every teacher in this session, and every leader, inclusion leader, will say the same thing. Yeah, for sure. Okay, my next question is directed at Jeff. As an experienced school improvement officer with huge success, what areas of inclusion should be focused on for schools around inspection time from your perspective?
Thank you, Catherine. I've written 3 C's in front of me. I've got consistency, first of all. So consistency of approach, you know, between subjects and between key stages. So sometimes we see in schools very good practice in some areas of the school, you know, depending on the understanding and the flexibility or the buy-in in some cases of the staff or of the HOD. So we're looking at consistency. We're looking, of course, at communication, as Ian said, involving all of the stakeholders. So, you know, the critical question is around homeschool communication, parents and teachers, but also around teachers, department heads, and the SENCO. So we really need, you know, in some cases, we need to move beyond the expectation that the SENCO has the magic wand to fix all of, you know, the work that needs to be done. So it's around communication, ensuring that the teachers are informed, that the IEPs are updated, and, you know, everybody's on the same page to make sure that the students are getting the support they need, but also to make sure that it's triangulated and that communication is effective. The 3rd C is curriculum, and around adaptability, if I can say that word, but also understanding, because we do have, you know, we work in a system with colleagues from many corners of the world. Some are more or less familiar with the curriculums that we're delivering. So, you know, whether that be British or English, I should say, you know, American or IB. So it's around curriculum adaptability. In order to be able to adapt the curriculum effectively, you've got to understand it well. So, you know, what it should look like, how it should be delivered, therefore, in which ways it can be modified or should be modified to make it more accessible. And also, as Ian said, you know, in some cases to make it more challenging, because there is, you know, in a minority of cases, you'll hear some pretty shocking comments from colleagues about students with additional needs, and we think, well, actually, you know, it needs to be more challenge or more stretch there, rather than easier or softer work in some cases. So 3 C's: consistency, communication, and curriculum.
Amazing, thank you. And Tiffany, as a group-wide leader of inclusive practice, what practices do you see as having the most impact on student outcomes?
I would say collaboration between all stakeholders is one of the most important practice, if not the most important practice. And I say that for 2 reasons. Ian and Jeff touched on it a bit, but as practitioners, we sometimes limit ourselves focusing on a student's deficits, and we try to work towards making those deficits stronger, when in reality, with collaboration, we can more so focus on the whole student, because people see different things from different students in various environments. And so while we're looking at it from one lens, the discussions that we have with other people working with that student, we can find their strengths, find their interests, things that we may not have seen. And naturally that supports the development of the whole child. More so also because when we're working in isolation with our students, what we typically run into are issues with students being able to generalize information. So the more we collaborate and talk about the things that we're doing, the strategies, the practices, what works, what doesn't work, the student is then able to generalize skills and its understanding in various settings. And you start to see growth, not just in your one-on-one or small group sessions, but throughout. So collaboration, I would say, is the most important.
Yeah, and it's like the jigsaw, isn't it? That you're getting different pieces of the puzzle that will create a holistic picture. Yeah, thank you. And Neelam, as a school leader and a conference speaker and an inclusion advocate across the community in the Emirates, which I really think you are, what do you think is has the greatest impact here on driving inclusivity across the schools?
I think the colleagues here have touched upon this, but it's about making it personal. So knowing the child's needs, knowing those individual needs, that teachers and leaders, we can check and observe, and we can look at quality first teaching data. But pastorally looking at this aspect as well. I know the colleagues have touched upon curriculum here, but it's looking at pastoral needs as well, why students might be behaving in certain ways. So it's looking to support those students, it's making it personal. What might drive that student in terms of his abilities or her abilities, how they might like to learn in the classroom, how the teacher or an assistant could cater for the student as well. So it's about making things personal. It's looking at the student's needs by asking the students as well. So asking the student how they might like to learn today, how and what they enjoy about learning as well. And in that way, like Jeff said, it's about adapting the curriculum to suit the students' needs as well. I think it's about respecting the diversity as well of our students and their talents. So going back to what Ian is saying, looking to stretch and challenge our students as well, not to have that blanket approach or, you know, typical sort of stereotypes that might come with it as well. So looking at respecting diversity and also supporting teachers in the classroom. Throughout this pandemic, teachers have had a lot of change, and it's about supporting them as well and making them aware and have that understanding to support their children, and in turn, the progress will happen.
And I think, Susie, you'd agree with me here that we've seen a huge increase in kind of areas of concern around student well-being. Can you talk to us a little bit about how the changes you've seen, Susie, over the last maybe 6 months or a year?
Well, yes, first of all, it's, you know, the stigma still that it is around counseling or well-being and or mental health. So it was much more on educating a lot of parents or through webinars or anything like that, or leaflets. I've told my counselors, because I represent the whole group. So I've told my counselors that, you know, the more information you would give the parents, the better it would be. Having open door policies with our students going into the classes, and we have seen that the people are coming and saying, oh, that's what it's about, because I think they have a misconception and also about confidentiality. So more and more students have really come for bullying, for missing their friends, not being able to fit in or afraid to fit in, speaking about their shortcomings, especially when they are teenagers. They're afraid of looking different or being different. So that was, and that was really interesting from the inclusion department, you know. So there is a strong bond between the two, where the students are now voicing or hearing or listening from the others and saying, oh, there is a person whom we can talk to. So yes, especially the children on the spectrum, as they have not been able to practice in real life what they needed to, you know, because there are lots of things they don't know, going by metro or buying those things or handling money and things like that, basic stuff that anybody else can. While these were things that now that the canteen is back open in school, that we try to do that within school. And it's okay to talk about their feelings. Many of them, they don't know that it's like they feel that it is, if they speak about their friend, it's snitching. About speaking about themselves, you're having self-pity. I said, no, it's not at all. That you have the right to be okay, or the right of not being okay. And the more we have been speaking or doing webinars or assemblies with our heads of years and all, it has really, really helped that they have a voice. Besides that, what you have, there is also, it's that you have, I'm sure many schools have that, like a email address that would only come to the counselor, like a voicemail. I have something like Handle with Care, and that I send that to parents as well as students, and they have this email address there. They can say, I don't feel comfortable with, I've seen something I don't like, or I've been hurt. Or parents would say, I saw my child not being okay this morning, but wouldn't open up to me. And that has really helped also. So there, and I can see, honestly saying, it's it's a hell of a job to keep your sanity at the end of the day also, because, you know, you are so challenged from everywhere. You have your own timetable, but you have all these walk-ins coming in, and you cannot say you don't have the time. So it's also difficult to manage when to come without compromising too much all your breaks, because, you know, you also have to look after yourselves, no? So that's important. But I think that the more we can liaise with the inclusion team, where we can really speak about about is your child okay? For example, we had a child in year 7 who was really literally unable to sit, and really we knew that he was ADHD. He was having medication, but his behavior was such as oppositional defiant disorder. He would defy anything and anybody. And it was just the reason that he has not been in school for 2 years. And, you know, having back a control, having back a timetable, having back to not being able to finish his work within time and understanding his needs. Well, after the break of December, and not a single, this term is not yet finished, but till now, not a single complaint from that child. So before we label or we send them outside to specialists, it's important to see, have we all done everything in our power to change things within the school, to make the timetable a little lighter, to allow extra time for homework or for tests. That I'm not ready, it's fine, it's okay, no big deal, you know. There are more important things in life than just a test. And putting all these things in place, he was able to verbalize much more, and we avoided putting an extra label on that child.
Yeah. And I think that's a really important point, in that, and I'm hoping that the inspection process will take that into consideration, that we're at a very different kind of a place in terms of education where our kids are, in that they're coming back essentially after 2 years of complete disarray and different experiences in distance learning.
Can I just say about you're very, very true. All the children who have missed in FS and who are now in year 2 or 3, and they cannot sit, and they have a pencil grip issues, and they have OT issues, and they have speech issues, because, you know, they are not speaking first, say, English at home. So it's very difficult, and they need that extra time and that extra time to settle down. And it's okay not to, because you know how the kids between themselves, they're not always very kind. And when you don't say well a word, then there's a ha, they'll mock, but it's up to their teacher to say, well, you know, it's not her first language, or calm down and say, why don't we all take it over like a song, or to just reduce those things on people. But we have quite a lot of students. If we had to listen and do the old way, we would send them all to OTs, huh?
I think so. At the moment, for sure, we would. Yeah. Okay, back to Ian. So Ian, you mentioned earlier how it's important to focus, and for SENCOs or heads of inclusion to know what is important to demonstrate. What advice would you give a SENCO or a head of inclusion around presenting their inclusive practice in the school? What do you think it's important for them to show an inspection team so that the team can see all of the hard work that's been going on?
I go round in circles in answer to that question. You know, and I tell you the focus, because despite the fact that I worked for the KHDA, my career hasn't been inspecting. My career has been, you know, with schools and with the classroom. And the most important people to impress with presentation, and this might sound a little bit cliched, are the children themselves and the families. And if the students themselves really have a voice in their plans. For example, when I was director of the national strategies for on policy on inclusion and for children in care, and one of the most successful strategies that was implemented, that was then taken away by subsequent governments, but was the getting children in care, for example, to be chairing their own case conferences. And you take that into schools, that children, even young children, yes, especially young children, you may not think they're capable. And those with communication difficulties will need a lot of support. But you know, you may not want to make them chair of the IEP committee, but certainly involved in the development of those strategies in a meaningful way. When you see children who can answer the questions, that's the best thing to present to anybody. Children are your best advocates, but if you present policies and all those are very useful. you know, but if you see children learning and taking a pride in their learning, and their workbooks are of a certain, and the strategies that have been advised to them are evident in their work, then honestly, that's the best thing to present. The second thing I would say to you is, and I know this will send a chill spine by people, it's not because I'm a maths teacher, but data, and data isn't numbers, it's not tests. It's information about the child and how the information is being used. Very often, the data that's presented is cold. It doesn't relate to the child, and it's not used in that way. So if you want to present the best efforts, connect everything to the child. I know that sounds really basic, but you know, when a HOD or an inclusion leader or a leader gives you one story, and then you follow the child into the classroom and they're getting a different experience than what's presented, then questions will start to be asked. It comes back to what I said earlier. I've always put my trust in children, and it might sound, push everything to present the children in the best light. Let them have the voice. Make sure the children know what targets they're working on, what they want to achieve. Have they had a say in identifying the barriers to success? And I just tell you this with, I won't name anything or where the person was from, but many years ago, because I was in charge of UK policy, I had to meet with many different groups. And one girl that come from a conflict zone who had lost her family and who was partially sighted and disabled from bomb damage. And she said to me once, she said, you know, the teachers keep saying, oh, we'll take it easy, we'll consolidate, we'll do this. She said, I don't think they understand what I've already coped with. I've coped with loss of my family. I've coped with loss of my sight. She didn't say it quite like this, so please, I'm putting it in my own English term. She said, and I don't understand why they don't think I'm up for the challenge. She said that to me. She said, they don't seem to understand. Now, you don't want a child saying that, they won't, but children saying, you want children saying, teachers really understand what makes and know how to get the best out of me. That's what I would present. Making sure the inclusion leads know their children and the children are comfortable in their settings. And you know what they're going to say to inspectors. That's the best way to be prepared. But second to that is present data that's absolutely relevant to the child and shows that you've done something, that they've made progress. That's what you want to see, something that's made a difference to the child. And if the child can articulate that difference, all the better. Some cases they can't, I understand that, but you get the point I'm making. Present the children and their achievements and everything will be okay.
Amazing, thank you. I think that's kind of the key element of all, like your focus should always be on your output of improving students' outcomes. Speaking of ensuring that your team know their children and that they're fully comfortable with understanding their children's needs, the students' needs. Tiffany, I'm going to ask you, as a manager of a group of schools, how do you ensure that your team are motivated and that they know their students? So your SENCOs and your SEN teachers and your LSAs.
In terms of motivation, you know, I think it's very important that sometimes the discussions we have aren't always about work and the students. So I really try to get to know my team on a personal level. And let them know as much, you know, I care about not just what you do here, but your well-being outside of such a stressful, overwhelming place. So having said that, I think I, in some ways, role model that it's important to look at other than just the academics. So for example, like I said, I have conversations outside of work. So I'm hoping I'm modeling to the teachers that for the students, it's not just always about their IEP. It's not just always about their deficits. It's about who the student is as a whole. It's about having conversations, developing those relationships, and not just assuming that we know because of what we've read on an external report or what we've heard, but really getting to know each and every child individually as best as we can. And I know some people sometimes have the concern about working with students and being a figure of authority, but sometimes the kids, it's not authority, it's a relationship, it's a friendship, it's getting to know, trust, love, and understand each other. And yeah, I think I simply do that by modeling, I hope.
Okay, and Neelam, as a practitioner based in a school at the moment, how do you motivate your community, the broader community, ensure that everybody is on the same page in terms of providing quality education?
I'm going to start where Tiffany left off, and I feel it's about the love. It definitely is. I think with students and staff as well, it's about showing that you're human. The human side needs to come out. And I do that. I motivate my staff and students by sharing that love. It can be simple things from tea and talk sessions, a coffee morning. It can be going around to see the students. Last week on a particular day, I just went around to see the students and gave them stickers at the end of the week. So just something simple like that is really meaningful. But also with the parents as well, I feel it's really important to have that check-in with the parents as well. Have that communication, have that link, whether it's a call every Thursday before we finish for the week. The parents need that support as well. So that homeschool collaboration really is a triangulation process. It helps the students, it helps the teachers, and it really certainly helps the development and the progress. The parents really enjoy that. They like that. They have an ear. They know that you care as well. So as a leader, I think the human side, the empathetic side should come out. And it's about looking at how we can progress as well, how we can move the school forward, looking at the outcomes. When all of this sort of pastoral element is there, the progress is made. The quality first teaching does happen. Teachers know that you are there to support. I had a teacher, for example, 2 weeks ago said, student X, I need some support. I have 5 students with behaviour in my class. Please just give me an additional TA to support. That additional TA went in, spent one-to-one time with the student, and he's very hands-on. So in science, we'll learn about circuits. And she made a video and shared the video with me. When the student came down, he received a prize and really boosted his confidence as well. So it's going back to what Tiffany said, it's about sharing that compassion, sharing the love, and really just being there. But again, going back to, I think it was Tiffany again, is about having that, or Susie was saying earlier, it's about having that own personal time and space with the teachers to have that debriefing time as well. Because we do have, like Susie said, the drop-ins and the callings and the staff where, they need that support. So that's really important as well, linking it back to the well-being, is ensuring that the teachers know how to support themselves with self-care and to maintain that balance as well. And us as leaders as well, where we can have our network and our forums and where we can offload and support. And in turn, progress does happen.
Yeah, I think that's really valuable. And it's, as a group leader, it can often be difficult to kind of track that and monitor it and make sure that you're doing it in a robust way. And there are a number of kind of support tools that we've had on I was going to say on the show, on the forum. We had Upstrive, we had UHU, we had, who else did we have, Susie? Was it, did we have Kinteract on as well last year? You're on mute.
We had the wonderful Rebecca from Semadip Clinic who were speaking to us about addiction, because that was also necessary, the screen addiction and all, you remember? Yeah, we had her also.
Yeah, and I was thinking of like kind of systematic tools that can help schools to monitor well-being. So one that I've worked with a lot was UHU, which is just an app that very similar to Upstrive. all the kids and teachers log in, and you can click like a smiley face at the start of the lesson, at the start of a day. And if there's a student who is really struggling, they can click like the very unhappy face or whatever emotion that best represents it. And it will ping a message to either their homeroom teacher or their form lead. And it can give them that kind of almost a silent message to say, I'm not okay today. And that goes for teachers and students, and that can help really keep well-being to the fore.
I really strongly advise. I don't know about you. There's also Pulse, similar. And there is, Pulse is similar. And then, but I'm a big fan of Upstrive because it gives you so much. Even if you're not from the counseling department or you don't have anything, it empowers the student actually with so many information about stress, anxiety, and all whatnot. And you can chat with your head of year or your learning manager or the counselor. It gives you, exactly like Catherine said, a lot of possibility. And it just got the prize of the Jess Wellbeing Award last November. It was really a fantastic tool that's keep on, how do you say, as the demands, and we criticize all the time the tool, and they keep on upskilling it. So that's really great. And yes, to have something to check in, because like for me, I'm the only counselor in a school of 2,800. At least I know that those that I won't see have a possibility to reach out. And I'll make sure to see that child. So that's really cool. And for the inclusion department, I've asked them to teach them how to use it so that they can also have access to it. So that's really nice.
Yeah, and it is vital, especially when you're managing large numbers of students. So turning to Jeff, having worked with such a variety of schools, what do you see as having one of the best or biggest impacts on student well-being?
I think Neelam sort of summarized it really as teachers who care, and the students can see that the teachers and the leaders care about them and are interested in them and get to know them, and their day-to-day sort of challenges and their day-to-day successes as well. This is why it's particularly difficult at this stage with the masks, sorry, this phone is going off here, in terms of getting to know students and people seeing emotions, seeing faces, even with the teachers, when you can only see a pair of eyes and hair, it's very difficult to have that interpersonal content and, connection and discussion. But the other thing I probably focus on in the last few years is the increased awareness and increased priority really given to well-being, whether it's mental health, stress, anxiety. We've just introduced a course now with the counsellor and with the supervisors of the pastoral team to try and start talking with students, having discussions with students about stress. Obviously, it's exam time for some of them, but mental health, well-being, managing emotions, and it's something that hasn't really been necessarily addressed well in the past up until, it's certainly come to the forefront now during the pandemic, as it should. Very, very important, equally important as the academic development and the academic support that we give to the children. So, the other recognition with some of the families is that the pressure that these kids are under from home to perform in exams and to come out with academic success and grades. So that's a challenge. So I think, increased awareness, increased support, and discussions around the topic in schools have certainly helped. Teachers who care, getting to know the students. So there's a lot there, but it's definitely now one of the most important areas. And most of the schools I've worked with score, not all, but most. I would say certainly the CBSE curriculums, the Indian curriculum schools, a particularly area of strength. Most of them score higher and always have done in what used to be standard 2 and standard 5. So, student personal development, protection, care, and guidance, because of the ethos of the schools and the nature of the relationships between the teachers and the students. So seeing it become more of a high focus area in recent years is very welcome, definitely.
Thank you. Susie.
I just wanted to add on what Jeff just said, and I think it's very important for us to be able to help our students. It's very important that the teachers are okay. And it's okay to tell the teachers, the staff, that the SLT, the senior management, to say, it's okay that you're not okay, because they've been through a lot. You know, it has been crazy times, you know, for me who am not tech savvy. I know how much time it took me to learn and to manage to and to juggle with all that. And then you come home, or you're home, and you have to still look after your children. It has been a lot for them too. And they're just starting to go back to, so some teachers who were fantastic before, they feel that they are not good enough anymore. And we just need to reassure them that, you know, and whatever inspection comes on their way, I say, celebrate your successes. You're so good. And people will keep in mind that you have also been, you're a human being like everybody else, and it's okay not to be okay now. You know, it's very important.
It really is. Okay, and so in terms of inspection, kind of preparation for inspections, I'm going to come back to you, Ian. What would you, in your experience, say are top 2 pitfalls that schools fall into during inspection, which might maybe delay their ability to meet their students' needs, or that might kind of bring them away from their main goal of education?
I mean, the pitfalls aren't in inspection, they're the pitfalls of everyday provision. Look, I fully agree with everything everybody said about well-being and everything else. You know, things that create anxiety and contribute to lack of well-being is lack of certainty. That's one. And a feeling that you're not involved, number 2. So you can never be 100% certain. But one of the things I would is, don't start the inspection preparation the week before the inspection. I mean, one of the things I used to make schools laugh is, you know, I could tell the exact date when they got the notice for the inspection, because that's when the lessons changed. And then do it all the year round. That's number 1. So get systems and processes which work. Everybody is comfortable from day 1. I mean, we have a day 1, minute 1 philosophy here at Athena, but you know, it's try and get things as right as you can. I think one of the other areas I would say about well-being, you know, if I talk to children, you know, one of the greatest sources of anxiety for them, outside the things that happen at home and the playground, are what happens in the classroom. And what happens is the classroom experience. They can be bored, or they're not engaged. If you agree as a school, set up agreement as a whole school, what a lesson looks like, for the teacher as well as the student, where the teacher's not doing all the work. Because there hasn't been agreement on structure, you end up with the teacher becoming more stressed because they know they've got to do all the work, they do all the explaining. There's no agreement on a lesson structure which involves the needs of different students. So I think having an agreement of what a good lesson looks like. Remember, if we're talking about well-being and the thing, where does everybody spend most of their time in school? In lessons, teachers and students. So let's really focus on what happens in a lesson. That's the pitfall, people, you know. And the other thing I would say in preparation is make sure everybody is involved in self-evaluation and in, you know, setting the targets for school improvement. Everybody's aware of what's being said. I mean, we're going through an accreditation at the moment, and one of the things I've done writing from here is written to every single teacher to make sure they know what's been said in their name. That causes stress in inspections when the teachers don't know what the inclusion leads have said, the inclusion leads don't know what the principal said. Everybody needs to be aware of the direction of the school, and the best way to be aware of the direction of the school is to have a whole school agreement on what good learning looks like for in any given point for any different groups of students. The major focus is the classroom experience, whether it be the new framework or the old framework. So get it right and get students and teachers involved in looking at the work that comes out of lessons and see so they can improve it the next time round. You know, I hesitate because I don't really know. I've been through many inspections on both sides of the table, and ultimately, all I've ever done, whether I'm an inspector or whether I've been a principal or a teacher, is focus on the kids. And if everybody can do that and know what my colleagues' focus is as well and why they're focusing the way they are, then I tell you, everything takes care of it. I remember my first inspection experience as a vice principal. Ofsted just came in. I'm that old. Ofsted just came in and they took students off to talk to them. And I remember being quite anxious and stressed about that. And then I suddenly realized I know how to overcome that. I made sure I knew what kids said about their learning every day of the week. So when I was a principal, they were taking students off. I wasn't stressed. I knew what they would say. Know the kids, get agreement on what a good lesson looks like, put a lot of effort on supporting teachers, get a good lesson structure and differentiating for the needs of students. You know, get the students involved in that process of differentiation as well. And work as a team in terms of, setting the direction and give everybody information. Everybody knows the IEPs, everybody knows the CEF, everybody knows the SIP. And then when everybody's got all the information, everybody's got a clear direction, you'll see stress levels go down. But, you know, the anxiety comes when people they're not prepared and they try to prepare the week before and it's no preparation. You know, preparation for inspection takes place now, not the week before. And that's the pitfall, is trying to do something different during an inspection week than you normally do.
And you
that's
can
what
always
causes the
tell,
stress.
can't you? You can tell when the kids are kind of looking up going, we haven't done this before.
Can I just add to this, Ian, as well here? Can I just put an addition onto what Ian's just said? I think looking at what a good one looks like, it's also really important when we're looking at the quality first teaching data of our teachers, is to identify those gaps and look where the standards need to be improved as well. And as a school, one of the good things that we've implemented is for teachers by teachers, the training from those teachers who have developed these things in the classroom, like Ian has said, and they put on that training. So it's not always the leaders taking the lead, it's actually the teachers going around working with smaller focus groups and to ensure that the standards and the improvements are made as well.
I think it's one of the things that teachers always say is being the most impactful on their development is observing other teachers and team teaching. I think in my experience, the most I've ever learned is by being in the classroom, watching other teachers. And I've been really lucky to see a lot of lessons, and pretty much every lesson you go into, you pick up something that you can take away, whether it's a trick or a tool or a saying or some sort of nuance that you think, oh, I could use that myself. It's really, really valuable. My last question is going to be an open question to the whole panel. So with the momentum of change that we have now, following the educational revolution of the pandemic, where do we see inclusion in the broader sphere of education? Like, do we see the model shifting? We are seeing a slight shift from, say, the regulatory perspective, in that our new framework is going to have a much more robust focus on inclusion and on well-being. So where do you guys see inclusion, say in 5 years or in 10 years, or indeed immediately in the coming months?
Well, I would say more so years from now, I think what we are moving towards is student autonomy and them understanding themselves, who they are, what their needs are, what they like, and learning to advocate for those things in a classroom setting. So I do think that we are starting even though it's been a gradual move from the traditional sit behind your desk and listen to the teacher, I think we'll start to see more students just kind of taking the reins. They're dictating what they're learning, how they're learning. And like I said, just speaking up for, this isn't good for me. Let's try this. And that's one of the things I really look forward to.
Yeah, I think that certainly is the way they seem. Young adults particularly seem to be much more aware of the wealth of opportunity that they have and how they fit into their own kind of career stream. How about you, Jeff? Where do you see inclusion and well-being as we move forward?
I think one of the big benefits that's come to be, come to many schools with the online learning and with the the use of technology. It was discussed actually it was in the conference last week. One of the schools mentioned it, is the ability for schools and for teachers and for students to be connected more easily. So the example shared there was students who wanted to take niche subjects or small classes being offered across a group. So, that's a huge benefit because many schools can't offer that provision. So if we extrapolate that to inclusion, we could say that you can have, with the collaboration of schools, you could have students and parents and teachers actually getting access to support and expertise that they perhaps wouldn't have easily done before. So that ability for the community to be connected is very valuable. So let's hope that we've got, as this is a perfect example now, this is a not-for-profit, this is a community project that you've set up. It's enabling people from all over the world, actually, not just the UAE, to share ideas. So if we get that approach, between the groups and between individual schools, then we could have access to, specialized practitioners. We could have consultancies, very much sort of accessible to all, accessible to a broader range of stakeholders than would previously be able to get that support. So that's, that's an opportunity in the future.
Yeah, and I think since Susie and I set this up, how long ago is it now, Susie? It must be nearly 3 years, is it? We have had people joining us from all over Africa, all over Asia, the UK, Europe, and the States and South America. We've had Argentina, Brazil, like people just pop in randomly. They would see our posters from time to time. They don't contribute as much as we'd like. I wish dearly that we could have people telling us what inclusion looks like in wherever, Panama or I don't know, Latvia. But the fact that they're there and we're all sharing, and we have got quite a good interaction on the email, on the forum email. And it's essentially, it's free. It doesn't cost us anything. We're here to share and support and learn from each other. And when we can get experts like you guys to come and tell us from your perspective in your setting, it just helps to raise the general standard of inclusive practice across the board. And I think that's pretty powerful. And on that note, I really want to thank you all very much for joining us. Ian, Neelam, Tiffany, Jeff, thank you so much for your time today. And I don't think we have any questions. The chat has been very quiet. I think people are listening. We've had almost 80 people joining today, and hopefully we can all take something from today's conversation, bring it back and help improve our students' outcomes. If anyone else has any questions, please do let us know. You can pop us an email, and follow all of our LinkedIns are on the chat. We've recorded the session. We'll share it as always in the newsletter and on our website. And thank you all very much. Any closing comments, ladies and gentlemen?
I would say keep up with the great work.
Thank you all, guys.
And just remember, it's about the kids, and you want to know where inclusion is. It's where the kids are. And as long as we keep listening to the voice of the student, then inclusion provision will be strong. That's where it is.
And on that note, I think we can close our session. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
See you
Thank
next
you.
week.
Thank you.
Masalama.
Bye.
Salama.
Bye.
Bye.